Hello everybody, it's me, Lasso Leopold. I spent 8 years of my youth making comedy skits and short films only to find out what people really wanted was skyscraper ranking videos. So here's a skyscraper ranking video.
The United States of America is a country in America. Apparently I'm living in it right now, who would have guessed? There are 50 states in the United States and each of them have their own tallest buildings, and I'm ranking all of them from worst to best.
But first, let me preface that I am no expert in architecture. I just happen to have the correct opinions on everything because I'm simply better than you. Sorry no one told you sooner.
But without further ado, the US state with the worst tallest building is number 50, North Dakota State Capitol in Bismarck, North Dakota.
That is atrocious. Okay, so in case you didn't know, I actually grew up in North Dakota, which is something you'll never hear from anyone ever again. And while I admit that big city life is more for me, I genuinely enjoyed living in North Dakota all these years. So it's not some kind of repressed hatred for my home state that made me put its tallest building at the bottom of the list. No, it's genuinely that bad.
It's got this dull, unbroken beige color scheme running across the whole facade with only the tinted windows creating any sort of contrast. I'd say it's a brutalist looking building, but at least most brutalist buildings I've seen had ambition. Plus, this was built in 1934, 4 decades before brutalism reached its peak. According to Wikipedia, though, it's considered Art Deco, which... Jesus Christ, Art Deco? What art? What deco? This is just a prison. It looks like a prison. The saddest part is here's the original design for the state capitol. I mean, it's absolutely astounding. Would have been so cool, but they ended up building this instead, which is not as beautiful, but still pretty nice. Then it burned down in a fire and was replaced by the ugliest building in the world, which 89 years later still stands as the tallest building in North Dakota.
God, it's just so ugly. I mean, yes, these politicians deserve to go to work every day in such a miserable looking building, but could at least not be like the shining skyscraper of North Dakota. And you know what's really depressing, okay? I was dead set on going out to the state capitol and going there in person and going like, oh, look at how ugly this building is right here. But you know what? You know what happened, of course? I remembered that the state capitol is in Bismarck, which is 3 hours away from Fargo, the city I live in. 3-hour drive and then a 3-hour drive back. That's what it would have to take for me to go in person for the stupid state capitol. And I'm not going just for Bismarck either, because I hate Bismarck. It's a miserable city, okay? The food is terrible. There's nothing to do outside of going to the Heritage Center. Everyone pretends like they're in some Trumpy Republican utopia, when really everyone's dead inside because there's nothing to do. Everything that is remotely fun to do in that area, it requires like driving like the distance of an Eastern European country. This is what it's like to be in North Dakota. There isn't jack shit.
Number 49, CenturyLink Tower in Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
Yeah, the Dakotas aren't exactly known for their architecture.
I mean, at least it doesn't look like a prison, but it's still such an uninspired design. It's a boring brown box that really doesn't need much explanation for why it's so low. Number 48, Wyoming Financial Center in Cheyenne, Wyoming. Clearly, the design was inspired by the one building in your college campus where all your worst classes were taken. Also, it's absolutely insane that this is the tallest building in a US state when the only evidence of its existence on Wikipedia is this extremely low quality 5p photo. Thank you for your contribution, Velissi Meshko. Number 47, First Interstate Center in Billings, Montana.
Montana. The best state to live in if you love mountains, and the worst state to live in if you love concerts.
Its tallest building gets points for the stripe pattern, but that's as far as it goes with interesting design.
Now, I do realize I have been picking on the small states and shorter buildings so far on this list, and while I do believe there is a correlation between the height of a building and how much the architects try, I don't think a building is inherently worse because it's shorter from a small state. I mean, the big states and their tall skyscrapers can also mess things up.
Number 46, JP Morgan Chase Tower in Houston, Texas.
Everything's bigger in Texas, including the boring rectangle buildings.
Honestly, outside of those billionaires' roast skyscrapers in Manhattan, this is my least favorite 1,000-foot skyscraper in the US. Just the purest lack of imagination went into the creation of this.
Rather unfortunately, I will inform you that boring rectangle skyscrapers will comprise a lot of these next few picks. Yippee.
Number 45, Capitol Center in Columbia, South Carolina. Boring rectangle building, but at least it's colored white and not beige. Makes it look a lot less run down. Number 44, ConocoPhillips Building in Anchorage, Alaska. Boring rectangle building, Alaskan edition. Number 43, Republic Plaza in Denver, Colorado. Boring rectangle building. Would have expected more from Denver. Number 42, Wells Fargo Center in Salt Lake City, Utah. Not the only Wells Fargo building on this list. It's uninteresting, but at least it's better than the LDS church office building in Salt Lake City, which is just horrendous. Number 41, Panorama Tower in Miami, Florida. Miami, despite having the third most skyscrapers in the US, honestly really lacks an interesting skyscraper design, and the state's tallest building is no exception. But I guess it is great for panorama photos, since you don't get to see it in the shot. Number 40, Transamerica Tower in Baltimore, Maryland. Rectangle skyscrapers aren't as common in the Northeast compared to the rest of the country, so it's disappointing Maryland couldn't do the same. Number 39, US Bank Center in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I like the belt truss structure that alleviates the boringness of the design. Number 38, the Central Ala Moana in Honolulu, Hawaii. Yeah, not very interesting, but the blue tinted windows are nice. Number 37, Decker Towers in Burlington, Vermont.
At a measly 124 feet, this is the shortest, tallest building of any US state. Or it'd be the shortest building, the shortest of any state's tallest building. Yeah.
Honestly, it feels kind of sad to compare this to skyscrapers. I mean, the Fargo Dome is taller than this apartment complex. It just doesn't feel fair. I mean, it looks pretty nice to live in, and that's all it needs. Number 36, Beau Rivage Casino Hotel in Biloxi, Mississippi. Casinos always depress me. Just so many hopeless fools giving up right before they're about to hit it big. Number 35, Hancock Whitney Center in New Orleans, Louisiana. And we're back to the boring rectangles, but the limestone exterior makes a difference. Number 34, Wells Fargo Center in Portland, Oregon. I cut above the rest of the rectangle skyscrapers due to the contrast of black windows and white walls. Number 33, City Hall Plaza in Manchester, New Hampshire. The wall pattern makes it look like it's rusting, but the green roof is a nice touch. Number 32, City Place 1 in Hartford, Connecticut.
And now we're finally onto the decent tier of skyscrapers. No more boring rectangle buildings, I promise you. Oh yeah, this one's pretty alright.
Number 31, Simmons Tower in Little Rock, Arkansas. I like the stair-step design, even if the rest of the facade lacks any other interesting details.
Fun fact, the Oklahoma City bomber almost considered blowing up the Simmons Tower before deciding against so, and I kid you not, because there was a florist shop on the ground floor.
Rather unfortunately, it doesn't appear as though the florist shop still exists, but hey, at least there's a potbelly serving as the first line of defense against terrorism. Number 30, 1201 North Market Street in Wilmington, Delaware. A nice building that doesn't really stick in your memory. Number 29, Salesforce Tower in Indianapolis, Indiana.
The poor man's John Hancock Center. I mean, they tried with the antennas, but you know.
Number 28, Epic Center in Wichita, Kansas.
I like the roof. Not sure if it's that epic per se. I mean, it's just an office building. There's no real gimmick to it. It was like the most epic thing in Kansas, who knows.
Number 27, 8th and Main in Boise, Idaho. I did not expect to rank an Idaho building this high, but 8th and Main is a pretty standout building for its height. The spire is an especially nice touch. Number 26, First National Bank Tower in Omaha, Nebraska. It's crazy, I would not have expected Nebraska of all places to house a 600-foot tall skyscraper. Overall, it's a decent design though. Number 25, the Westin Virginia Beach Town Center in Virginia Beach, Virginia. That's a cool spire, Virginia. Number 24, Fontainebleau, Las Vegas in Las Vegas, Nevada.
As of this recording, it's not technically completed, but it was topped out 15 years ago, so it counts in my books.
Yeah, weirdly enough, this 737-foot tall hotel and casino was constructed back in 2007 and was topped out a year later. Unfortunately, it topped out just in time for the Great Recession and the funds ran out. The building's ownership changed hands several times in the following decade, leaving it abandoned until they decided to finish the building 2 years ago. Fingers crossed it'll finally be completed in December 2023.
This decent looking skyscraper saw 4 presidencies pass on by before it was completed. I officially have all the excuses in the world to take 3 months to make a new video. Well, maybe if Las Vegas didn't kick out the mafia, they would have had the money to complete it on time.
Number 23, Columbia Center in Seattle, Washington. It's a sleek design, not as good as the Space Needle, but hey. Number 22, Comcast Technology Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Pretty nice, but it does look a little unfinished. Like the spire though. Number 21, Devon Energy Center in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. So I guess Oklahoma had one of the tallest buildings in the world, alright. Number 20, St. Joseph's Church in Biddeford, Maine. Well, apparently this church built in 1870 is Maine's tallest building. I mean, St. Joseph's Church is well designed, but it also looks like any other old church. Hell, it's not even the tallest St. Joseph's Church, or even the only St. Joseph's Church in Maine. An entire state's architectural prowess peaked 153 years ago, I guess. Number 19, 99 Hudson in Jersey City, New Jersey. A solid building. Don't really have much to say outside of that. Number 18, Albuquerque Plaza in Albuquerque, New Mexico. A hidden gem of a skyscraper, the clay color palette and pyramid roof really makes it stand out, especially as it complements the surrounding desert.
This building sure is the danger. It's the one that knocks. Walter.
Number 17, John Hancock Tower in Boston, Massachusetts. Who knew John Hancock owned 2 skyscrapers? Well, it's not as good as the center in Chicago. I like how reflective the windows are, making it almost blend into the sky. Kinda reminds me of the Legacy at Millennium Park. Number 16, Chase Tower in Phoenix, Arizona. An otherwise average-looking glass building is made much more unique with this concrete slab right down the middle. I don't know why it's there, but I like it. Also, it's worth mentioning that this building, along with the previously mentioned Devon Energy Center, were both scaled by a man who refers to himself as the pro-life Spider-Man. He's this guy that climbs skyscrapers with no safety gear and without permission from the building owners to protest against abortions.
Now, of course, since I'm just a comedy YouTuber, it is not in my interest to publicly express my political views.
Number 15, IDS Tower in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Now, I've actually spent a lot of time in Minneapolis. It's the closest big city to Fargo, and my sister lives there. Unfortunately, it's also a 3-hour drive away, so
The skyline of Minneapolis is defined by 3 skyscrapers looming far above the rest: the Wells Fargo Center, the Capella Tower, and the aforementioned IDS Tower.
while IDS is just barely the tallest, it's also the least good looking of the 3. Still, it's a pretty good building.
Number 14, One Kansas City Place in Kansas City, Missouri. Pretty good stuff. Not sure about the name exactly. Guess it's technically correct. Number 13, West Virginia State Capitol in Charleston, West Virginia.
This is another building that feels a bit weird to put on this list of skyscrapers, but I didn't make the rules.
To be fair though, that gold roof is phenomenal. It easily makes for one of the best state capitol designs. Certainly puts North Dakota State Penitentiary to shame. Number 12, RSA Battle House Tower in Mobile, Alabama. They did not have to go that hard on the spire. Don't know if this ever saw any battles, and I don't know, maybe they're prepping for a future one. Number 11, 801 Grand in Des Moines, Iowa. Quite an interesting setback pattern. There really aren't many buildings that look like that, and it's in Des Moines, Iowa of all places.
Now, before we get to our top 10, a word from our sponsor. I have 300 subscribers. Did you really think that I had a sponsor?
Number 10, Wilshire Grand Center in Los Angeles, California. Who would have guessed a shampoo bottle with a toothpick in its lid would make for a pretty excellent skyscraper design? But not gonna lie, the US Bank Tower is still the superior LA skyscraper. Number 9, Key Tower in Cleveland, Ohio. What can I say? I'm a sucker for these traditional setback tower designs. Also, I love the keys on the top of the building. Nice detail. Number 8, AT&T Building in Nashville, Tennessee.
Also known as the Batman Building. Oh, I get it. The ears, yeah.
But let's be real, it looks like the Eye of Sauron. The Eye of Sauron is in Tennessee. It's in the same state as Dolly Parton and the Bass Pro Shops Pyramid. Number 7, Bank of America Corporate Center in Charlotte, North Carolina. The crown of the building creates an incredible light show, making one hell of a spectacle at night. Number 6, Renaissance Center in Detroit, Michigan. It's insane that it's all technically one building. It's one of the few skyscraper designs that really goes for a cyberpunk metallic aesthetic, and I appreciate it for that. As the only skyscraper in Detroit that doesn't look incredibly old, it's a glimmering reminder of the city's potential. Even though it was built in 1977 and half the population has left since then. Forget that. Number 5, 400 West Market in Louisville, Kentucky, or however they pronounce it.
Okay, someone needs to name this building already because it looks so good.
Are you kidding me? This magnificent building was hidden in Kentucky? That dome is incredible. More buildings should look like this. Number 4, One World Trade Center in New York City, guess the state.
This is the tallest building in the entire country, and it is just incredible.
I love the massive spire and triangle shaping of its facade. It's so simple yet so elegant and powerful. An iconic skyscraper that deserves to be on the same island as the Empire State Building.
One World Trade Center is a building emblematic of New York City as this economic power of the world, the concrete jungle where dreams are made of. But Chicago hasn't beat.
Number 3, Sears Tower in Chicago, Illinois.
Am I biased because I live there? Yes, obviously. But the Sears Tower is still an undeniable landmark in skyscraper design.
First off, its dark black color scheme really helps it stand out amongst a skyline of beige and blue. Not to mention, the building has a very interesting bundled tube structure where it's made of essentially 9 buildings of differing height put together. And then there's the gigantic white antennas, which contrast the rest of the building and look really cool.
Just all around a wonderful building that I'm really glad I get to see basically every day. And yes, I did just transcribe all of that from the Chicago skyscraper script. What are you gonna do? Click off the video, huh? No, please don't.
Number 2, Bank of America Plaza in Atlanta, Georgia. In the last 40 years, Atlanta has become the dark horse of city architecture in the United States, and the pinnacle is the Bank of America Plaza, standing high above the skyline. Its classic skyscraper design is much like the Key Tower in Cleveland, but takes a step further with its amazing pyramid roofed spire. And at night, oh my god, is that lighting so cool.
More buildings should look like this. I mean, granted, I don't think they're very good for light pollution, but if you're so fancy about the stars, then why the hell are you living in a big city? Just drive out a few miles. Now, before we get to our number one pick, here are a few honorable mentions.
First off, the Washington Monument in DC. Not technically a building, but DC isn't technically a state either. If you ever wondered why the bottom half of the monument is a different shade than the top half, then you're out of luck today because I'm not looking it up, I'm tired. The St. Louis Gateway Arch. Absolute madness, and I'm glad it exists. I never even realized you could go into the arch. God, the stairs must be terrifying to go down. Too bad it was made as a dedication to manifest destiny. I mean, at least no Native Americans were killed in the making of this arch. As far as I know. The Strat in Las Vegas, Nevada. The tallest freestanding structure I pushed someone out the window of. And finally, the symbol of American might and power. The tallest structure in the entire Western Hemisphere. The KVLY TV mast, baby! Such an elegant, sleek design, complemented by that red and white patterning. It truly is a testament to human accomplishment. And it's in North Dakota? Only 49 minutes away?
Max, wake up! Wake up! Wake up! Come on, we're going to the KVLY TV
So why are you in my house?
We're going to the KVLY TV
What?
mast. It's calling us. It's calling us. What am I doing again? Oh, right, yeah, and now the number one best tallest building of any U.S. state is. It is. Stop pulling on me.
Number 1. Industrial National Bank Building in Providence, Rhode Island.
Yeah, I'm shocked too. And I know I've said this a lot during the ranking, but genuinely, it is mind-boggling that such an incredible building comes from Providence, Rhode Island. I mean, I didn't even know there were any buildings in Rhode Island.
The Industrial National Bank Building, also known as the Superman Building, yeah, I don't see the resemblance, was completed in 1927, a full 4 years before the Empire State Building in New York. I know I'm going to sound basic, but I really like Art Deco skyscrapers. Of course, there are plenty of incredible modern designs that aren't restricted by the limited resources of the 20s and 30s, but there's something really warm and comforting about the look of these old buildings. The Superman Building especially is a shining work of art. It's got this castle look to it with that lantern-looking thing at the top. Just exquisite architecture. It may not be as tall as the other skyscrapers, but it certainly shines brighter.
Unfortunately, the Superman Building has been left vacant for the last 10 years and would require $115 million in order to rehabilitate it.
Even though it's an iconic building, it's not registered as a National Historic Landmark, which means it must either be rehabilitated or demolished, and there has been historical precedent of governments choosing the latter for worn-out skyscrapers. The Singer Building in New York was the tallest building in the world from 1908 to 1909, but fell into disrepair in the 60s. It was demolished in 1969 and replaced by a boring rectangle building.
So I'm urging you viewers at home, please, do not let the same fate fall upon the Superman Building. But with your generous donation to the I Little Pictures Patreon fund, you too can help ensure that this really cool looking building in downtown Providence, Rhode Island, a city I've never been to and I'm sure most of you haven't, remains intact. And there we are, every state's tallest building ranked. Roll credits. Ding! Now, I know that no one asked, but here's the ranking on a map.
As you can see, while it isn't a solid correlation, there is a divide between the east and west states in skyscraper quality. Obviously, it's worth noting that the bottom 4 states, North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, and Wyoming, are contiguous. They are sparsely populated states where skyscrapers aren't a necessity for residents or businesses. It's a similar situation for the rest of the west, but the lower quality in skyscrapers can also be attributed to factors such as car-centric urban planning, height restrictions, and earthquake-prone cities on the coast. Less need for skyscrapers means there's less need for interestingly designed skyscrapers.
I don't know, it's just a theory. Otherwise, there really isn't that much that separates these states. Not population, not political alignment. A great skyscraper can come from any part of the country.
Look who decides to show up to recording.
Who decides to show up to recording? Well, anyways, thank you so much for sticking to the end. If you're new to this channel, I'll admit that skyscraper ranking videos are not my main thing, but I definitely really plan on doing more because they're really fun to do. I also want to broaden my range of topics for ranking videos, anything from the planets in our solar system to the fast food restaurant bathrooms. So if you want more ridiculous ranking videos done by a guy way out of his depth, then I suggest subscribing 3 times, hitting that dislike button, and smashing that computer screen.